Today I want to tell you who invented the beer. Where does it come from? Any ideas? Where does the beer come from? From us, the Bavarians? No, we didn't. The beer was invented 11,000 years before Jesus Christ. 11,000 years. Any ideas what happened at that time in Europe? Really nothing, okay? Not really nothing. It's not true because there were some druids building up some strange stones in Stonehenge, but except of that, a lot of trees and some crazy berry pickers, that was it. But who invented it? It were the Sumerians. Sumerians? Huh? Who the hell are the Sumerians? Okay, you don't have to know them. That these people lived in Mesopotamia. That is the area where milk and honey flows. I see you aren't well versed in the Bible. So this is the area now called, pay attention, Iran, Iraq and Syria. Yes, Syria, where all the refugees are coming from. They also brought the beer to us. But how do we know? The Sumerians wrote it down, very easy. And you can really read that, and you find it in a big stone, a statue 1/2 meter high, placed at the Louvre at Paris. And there they wrote it at Paris. At Paris. And there, okay, they wrote it in. Okay, right isn't the right word. Let's say hammered it in. Because they had the cuneiform script. So, at the Louvre in Paris. At the Louvre in Paris. Okay, they didn't write it in. Let's say they hammered it in because they had the cuneiform script. At the Louvre in Paris. And okay, they don't wrote it in, they hammered it in because they had the cuneiform script. But nevertheless, this called Hammurabi statue, there were all laws on it, even the food acts. And now you say, food acts? Food acts? Isn't it Bavaria who is celebrating 500 years anniversary of the beer purity law as the eldest food act in the world? Forget it. The Hammurabi stele. That was the real eldest food act in the world. Forget it. The Sumerians were faster. They hammered and sculpted and carved it in their Hammurabi stele. And these really forget it, the Sumerians were faster. They sculpted and carved it in their Hammurabi stele, and so they had their laws 1,700 years before anything happened in Europe. And I don't have to tell you again what happened in Europe at that time. So on that Food Act, you also find what they want to do with beer adulterators, because beer adulterators have to be drowned in their own barrels. So what do we learn? There were penalties for beer brewers. They had barrels. They had beer. And they even know how to mix beers. But who invented it? We think 1,100 years before the birth of Jesus Christ, there was a king of the Sumerians, let's call him Gallibum. And Gallibum didn't feel so well one day. He was laying in his bed and had some bread and some water, maybe hot water, maybe kind of soup, and he dipped and dunked his bread in his soup, but he didn't like it, and so he put it and pushed it under his bed. But he wasn't so hungry, so he put his bread in, dull and unmotivated, and he didn't like it. And so he put the bread into the water and pushed the whole shallot bowl under his bed. And maybe the Sumerians weren't the cleanest guys, maybe the king wasn't very happy if someone cleaned under his bed. It was forgotten. And on another day, weeks later, the king was sitting in his bed and writing a new law before breakfast. And before breakfast, he was a bit weak, so the chisel fell down, rolled under the bed. He had to put it out, and there he saw that bowl again, and saw a lot of foam on it. So he tasted the foam and yeah, tasted not so bad. So he also tasted the colored water, and that was really great. And so he invented the yodeling. No, of course not the yodeling. This is Bavaria. He invented the beer. And from that time on, the people drank beer because it was easier to get than wine with all the grapes and so it was cheaper. And all the Sumerians drank beer instead of water or wine. And that saw the Egypts and that saw the Egyptians. And the Egyptians take it with home to Egypt. And believe it or not, there was a law that every worker on the pyramids were allowed to drink 2 liters of beer a day. So the first professional breweries were very close to the pyramids. And with the Egypts, also the Romans get the whole stuff, and so they put the whole stuff to Rome. But in Rome, you can imagine, they had a lot of wine tasting well. They weren't so interested in the kind of beer. But nevertheless, when they start their military, let's say, expedition to the north, they got over the Alps, and some of the Romans coming on the other side of the Alps were tired, lazy, blizzard feet, and they said, sorry guys, we think we stay here. That marked the birth of the Bavarians. And from that on, all the Bavarians are always a bit tired, lazy, and have a lot of blisters on their feet. Okay, the Romans who stayed in Bavaria tried to cultivate wine, but the grapes didn't want to grow as they were used to. And so, the only chance to get drunken, and if you live here, you have to be drunken, was to drink beer.